Hey guys, welcome back to Bar Mills. Howdy ho.
Good evening.
Big guy Jack on the toll stool tonight. I want to give him a heads up, so to speak. And welcome all back to Bar Mills. It's been a while. It's been warm and sunny and hot up here, as you all know. We had 16 inches or 14 inches. What did you get over the weekend?
18.
18 inches of
on
snow.
top of 4 feet.
On top of 4 feet. So that's what we've been doing. So if you say, where's all the kits? Well, I got to tell you, I don't get this physically incredibly awesome build by building kits. I've been pushing a lot of snow. Jack has a nice Dodge Ram with a plow.
Yeah.
And I have a nice Honda snowblower that I push. But for me, it works because it's the way our driveway is. Anyhow, welcome back. Hope you're all having a great day. And we have an interesting show tonight. We're not going to be going over any customer photos for a change. We're going to get right to this. And the thing of it is, have you been keeping busy, Jack? What have you been up to? We did this in December. We skipped January. And we skipped February. So it's been 3 months. What have you been up to, Jack?
Springfield was a big thing. We had a great time at Springfield. Saw a lot of people. Did a lot of things. It was a really good show. The weather was decent. I've been working at the ski area, so I just ran over here from there tonight. And then I have my summer job.
You just came in from skiing all day today, right?
Yep.
There you go.
All day long. And running a ski race, so it's a little bit
And
of
tomorrow,
aging.
what are you doing?
Tomorrow I have another ski race to do. But I'm also, Sunday we started I work at a racetrack on the summertime, so that started in, so I've been kind of busy.
That racetrack has got to have a lot of snow.
Yeah, they're not quite ready.
We were so busy through Christmas with Rickety Cove, which we will talk about in a second, as well as with Springfield, of course. The question is, have you been to Springfield? Were you down in Timonium? Were you at any place? Because we know not everybody here lives in the Northeast. Springfield, on a scale of 10, was, say it?
At least a 10.
At least a 10. It was a great show. We saw a lot of people.
It was very busy.
Matter of fact, Jack runs clinics there. We have a 10-foot by 20-foot tent set up as part of our exhibit. And from what I saw, and I'm kind of busy on the other end of things, Jack, I think your attendance was substantial, right?
Very few people sleeping. It was great.
And that's, with guys our age, the sleeping is a big part of what we do. That's the best part of the hobby sometimes.
Well, sometimes they just come in to sit down.
Yeah.
Well,
you must have how many chairs would you say there?
That's 20.
That's it?
Yeah, about 20 chairs.
I would say more like 30, but we'll see what happens. Anyhow, I hope you've all been keeping busy. I know we have a lot of you typing away here on both Facebook and on YouTube. And I have to admit, I am not looking directly at that. I do see we have a lot of our regulars. Without going through the names, you know who you are. It's going to be a very busy evening. Now, what I started to do not too long ago was post letting you all know, both on Facebook, on YouTube, and on our mailing list, that we're going to be doing this tonight. And I made you an offer. You shouldn't have been able to refuse, unless you know everything, in which case, why are you here? The deal was this: we would give you a $10 gift certificate.
I never got things like that.
Well, that's because you have so many questions. I go broke giving you gift certificates.
Oh, okay.
That's it. So anyhow, the idea was help us out, give us some questions, and we're going to give each of you who have your questions reviewed here tonight a $10 Bar Mills gift certificate. But before we get into that, I don't have my computer in front of me, my little iPhone. People are saying, what happened to Rickety Cove? Well, we stopped taking orders after Springfield. It was February 1st. And February, as you know, is a short, and in this case, a very snowy month up in the Northeast this year. And the idea is we wanted to see how many of you wanted to still get the kit up till January 31st. So we closed the ordering schedule as of that time. And we ended up with 75 additional kits, which is great. But when you come down to it, 9 times 75 is something like 600 to 640 individual buildings. And we're not even talking about the detail parts or the dock or none of that. We had to literally manufacture 640 more buildings in the last 5 weeks. And you know what? We're almost done with them. What's holding us up right now is finishing up with the castings, because 640 buildings, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of castings. So if you're waiting for Rickety, don't be concerned. You want it right. The only thing easy about remaking that kit, Jack, is the fact that we already have the instructions made up. And for those of you who have the
The
kit,
instructions for me are simple.
the instructions for you are simple because you didn't have any when you made the kit. But if you have the kit, you may notice that the signs for Addison's and Gerda are missing. But not to worry because we've had them on the Bar Mills website as a link for some time. So if you're missing those signs, and you're going to be because I overlooked that, just go to the website. You can print out as many as you would like. Okay, so I see Calvin, Todd Bryan, Bob Gambler, who I believe is from Maine here, Steve Moskin, a lot of our regulars, Glenn Hedricks, I believe from Canada. Who do you have on there? Same bunch?
Yeah, well, Jeff DeVito,
Oh, yeah. Jeff DeVito. Welcome back, Jeff. I know he was at the show.
Artie Carras.
And recently he got me a little ticked off by posting a picture of him and his lovely girlfriend sitting on a beach while we were in the middle of a snowstorm, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Hector Turner.
Hector Turner's a Canadian guy, and we did send you something up today, Hector. I didn't have your email address handy, but you asked for some help with some walls, and those left here today, so you know. So let's get on to this. The train show, you know what? We talked about Timonium just now, but we are going to do something. We're going to kind of step back to the way things were when we started Bar Mills almost 25 years ago. We were out there, we were doing 10 train shows a year. And of course, we were doing all the billboards at that point. Displays were smaller. I had a Chevy Astro. We used to bring everything around. Now we have a 16-foot cargo trailer plus a nice sized pickup truck. And the fact of it is we don't go to as many train shows. Just think of the prices of hotels and fuel these days. And of course, you have rent and food and the rest of it for the guys. Not that I don't try to starve them, but they seem to not want to work when I starve them. So I have to keep feeding them. As a matter of fact, I just had to feed Jack a sandwich to get him over here tonight. So what we're looking for...
Where's the sandwich?
Oh, come on. All right, so what you're going to find out is that we're going to start going on the road just a little bit, and we have a couple slides to show you. 2 shows that Jack and I will be traveling out of state, way out of state, Jack, to do clinics, and that's why we're going to the shows. And the first show that we're going to talk about is the one that's sooner, and it's in June. Now, I know that seems like a long way away, but, you know, don't blink. It happens to be a specialized show with some amazing modelers, and Jim Mooney's actually going to come to this one. It's a show in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it's the apparently, from what I've been told, like the biggest narrow gauge show around certainly as far as O-scale goes. I've been following them online since I learned about this, and there's some amazing modeling, and Jack and I will be there giving clinics at that show. Now, obviously, we don't model an O-scale, but we will also have a table set up with our O-scale kits. If you want to stop by, even if you're not in O-scale, please feel free. And obviously, as it says on the graphic on the screen, it's everything wonderful in O-scale. And if you have a chance, look up this group. It's an amazing group on Facebook, and the modeling is all magazine quality. It really is amazing. So that is in June, and that's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Jack and I will be driving down there, along with the myth, the mystery, the enigma of the man Jim Mooney, who should be there as well. The second show is going to be in August, where Jack and I are going to get down to Boston, Mass., jump on a plane, and head down to Texas, because we're going to be heading for the
Nice
Texas
picture.
Express. And there's a picture of Jack smiling with his hair actually combed. And this will be at the NMRA National Show. We've arranged to give not 1 or 2, but 4 clinics between us on the Thursday and Friday of the show. And we're actually flying down there as a meet and greet to say hello to you guys. We're going to have 4 individual separate clinics. So if you manage to make it down to the NMRA, I've never been to... what the name of this place is? Gaylord, Texas. Okay, okay. Enough of that. But we're going to head down there. I know their registration numbers are very good, and it looks like it could be a good show considering how people have been a little bit timid about getting out and flying and sitting on planes and the rest. But we're going to be sitting on a plane for some time to get down there.
Well, the nice thing will be it's not a real big travel time, so
I think I was able to get nonstop flights, which is a big thing.
I think that's a good time to fly. It's not going to be too busy. It's not like Christmas.
Well, who wants to be in Texas in the summer is the question. I don't know. I would imagine that it's pretty warm down there.
Yeah, you just go from one air conditioning to the other.
So we go from one
And
seat
you go
to
out at
another
night.
seat. So if you if you have plans on going down to the NMRA, or if you don't, and you're close enough, maybe you'd like to stop by. Both Jack and I will be there giving not one, but 4 clinics over the 2 nights, the Thursday and Friday nights. And we are also looking at setting up a very small booth. We're not going to have anything to sell because it's just too much to carry back and forth, especially on a plane. But we will be there. If you're not part of the NMRA, but you still want to stop by the booth, we will be there for that.
Don't forget, it's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. I don't know about that. Anyhow, we're supposed to fly into Dallas, Fort Worth, a place I've never been before. Been to Houston, never made it up to Dallas, Fort Worth. Anyhow, that's what's going on with us. So we have howdy from Kentucky, howdy from Columbus, Ohio. Ohio, Columbus. Howdy from Standish Neck, Brian Libby. I don't know Standish Neck. We have Standish, Maine right next door to us here. I see John Prater's here, Pat Buffalino from Fort Lauderdale, Florida these days. Brad's Trains, Jim Reese, Glenn Peterson. Anybody else you have over there I'm missing?
It looks like Bob McCormick, sorry about that. Todd Breen. Robert Dye.
Jerry Bengtson from
Jerry
Colorado.
Bengtson.
Hey, how you doing, Jerry? Hopefully the bicycling is going well. Jerry's a bicyclist, and he's avid, but I don't know Colorado well enough to know if he's using it this time of the year.
Larry Church.
Larry Church.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Anyhow, we asked for some questions, and we got a lot of questions. If you have any questions that we can maybe catch, I'm going to ask Lenny, who's kind of quietly in the background watching all of this. I'm going to ask Lenny to kind of monitor for questions that we cannot stare at the screens and answer the questions, okay? So we're going to go over not 1, but 2 pages of questions you guys asked, and hopefully we'll share some modeling ideas. But if you have any input, something you maybe have a different way of doing something, or maybe you think you do it better than we are, just to amuse you, we'll let you ask that question or answer the question. Anyhow, we're going to start tonight with a fella who happens to be on. I saw his name, and that's Calvin Saxton, who's a regular Bar Mills kind of guy. Hi, Calvin. Anyhow, Jack, I'm going to ask you the questions. And then you can bounce it back to me, and knowing I always have something to say.
You want correct answers or just answers?
No, just bullshit.
Okay. All right.
Calvin Saxton, maybe you could say something about hiding one's errors. For example, a corner that doesn't quite fit, or the warping that will be hard to hide. Jack, could you have any modeling with the master here?
I don't make errors.
He doesn't make errors, so the answer is don't make mistakes.
It
Calvin.
was all planned.
The nice thing about I found I've been using it quite a bit. It's got this one-time spackling compound, and it is a great putty. So if you had even if it was a clapboard wall, and you fill that little groove with some of this putty, and you can form it to the clapboards a little bit. It's stainable, paintable when it's dry. It's very quick and easy to do. It wipes right off. It's water soluble. So if you're going to use a putty to fix a hole or something like that, that one time you'll buy a little can of it like this for $6. You'll probably never use it all. So that's my kind of go-to putty. It doesn't attack anything. It's pretty good. It's all right with plastic. And warpage, I would do warpage probably before I put my building together, if that's the case. And my solution to warpage is, if you put the same amount of stain on the back side as you put on the front side, the warpage will go away because it's stretching one side because it's sucking up the water. So if you suck the water on both sides, it's going to relax, go right back to where it was straight, and then you can paint the inside later if you want. That's fine, but that's what I do, especially on peaked roofs. If you got a peaked roof and they're hard to sometimes brace way up there's a window or something, just put the stain on the inside of the wall and the outside of the wall, and it'll come right back straight.
Well, you see, my answer is 2 things. Number 1, if the building is usable, but you have, say, a CNET separating, use the old George Celios method and put up a vine, okay? Number 2 is if it looks really bad, just turn it and face it the other way. But one way or the other, there's always a way to use the structure. Of course, you may have to play up different features than you'd like to. When wood is warped, it's difficult. The whole thing there is simply to brace it properly in the first place. I know that's kind of a hard lesson, but it's true, Calvin. So that's our input, right?
Yeah, if it's on the building and it's warped, then that's a little harder to fix. You sometimes can get, if you can get a clamp on it, you can
kind of squeeze some glue in there, squeeze it back down, and see if it'll stay.
The other thing
that's
is
about
to
it.
use a clamp and use a piece of wood on either side if you can still get to the inside of the building, and put a piece of wood on either side and moisten it up some and let it kind of dry between them. Use it like a press. Brendan Jones. I actually have a relative named Brendan Jones.
Is this your
I
relative?
believe Brendan. No, I don't think so because
Are you
this
sure?
gentleman is in Kentucky.
Because he would not be eligible for the prize.
That's right. That's right. Forget the $10, Brendan. I am doing my first waterfront layout with Rickety Cove. I was thinking of using Woodland Scenics realistic water like I have before for lakes and ponds, but the questions are this. Is this the best product for use in the basin, which there will be so much more water, approximately 31 by 14 inches, around a quarter-inch deep, which is about where you want to keep it? And number two, what base coat do you all suggest when trying to get the right look for the water? It's being modeled after a bay in Louisiana. Now, number one is don't forget the beer cans. All right. As far as the rest of it goes, Jack actually modeled all of the water in the Rickety Cove diorama, but you understand that our SN2 layout in Bar Mills actually is 100% waterfront and 17 feet long. So when you look at 31 by 14, well, think 17 feet. There's been a lot of water poured between the two of us. Jack, how did you work on Rickety?
Let's start with the base coat colors because that's what you want to do first anyway. What I normally do, depending upon where you're modeling, so you're modeling Louisiana. If you're doing a bay, it's probably a muddy brown. So what you want to do is you want to get a couple of brown colors, a darker color, a lighter color, and then a real lighter color on the browns. And you want to, if it's acrylic paint, which is the easiest to work with, take a brush and you're going to scrub it on, and then you're going to put the next color closest to the shallow water, and you're going to kind of blend them together by scrubbing them together. And then you're going to go to the even lighter right up against the shore, and you're going to scrub those together and kind of mix them all in together. So the middle is darker and it looks deeper, and then as you go to the shore, it gets lighter and it looks shallower. That's the simplest way to do a base coat for water. But remember, you want the smooth base coat for water. If you're going to use any kind of an epoxy or something like that, don't forget you have to seal up every nook, every crack, everything you can find with something that isn't going to react with the pour, basically. And then you got to seal your front edge. And then you got to wait. And if you want some kind of ripple effect or something like that, you kind of wait till it's almost set up and pick and pull at it, and you can get it to make waves, you can get it to make ripples, or you can go to a acrylic modeling paste and brush it on the top even of acrylic pour, or you can use it straight from the jar and kind of make it in little circles, small little circles, so you have some ripple to it. It'll even out a little bit, but not too much, and then let it dry and put maybe 2 coats on it, and you're done. It doesn't have quite the depth of some of the things, but it's going to give the reflection of the light off the water moving.
Well, you know, Glenn Hedrick up in Canada basically asked the same question, Glenn. It says, as I really suck at making water scenes, I need a large one for Rickety Cove. Could you talk about your favorite way of modeling a large cove? Now, this is not a Louisiana-based cove. This would be a cove very similar to what we did on our own diorama. The difference being in the approach, Jack, anything?
Well, no. The only problem you have to decide what you're going to do for your where your water meets your land. So if you're going to have docks and things like that, you need to be able to put those things in before you start your water. I would, if I'm building my cove, that whatever I'm going to put in for my water, whether it's pour or whether it's acrylic, I'm going to wait almost to the last thing so I don't get crap falling into it. You're going to have some times where you may want some rock structure, and they can be from a mold, they can be from, you can carve them out of structure. What's the plaster we?
Oh, what we use is Sculptamold.
Sculptamold works
Absolutely.
very well.
Yeah.
You get some nice thing. It stains nicely. It's very easily done. And then you can use resin castings for seawalls and things like that. There's all kinds of stuff out there. You can build your own seawalls.
And of course, with Rickety Cove, they are already included with the kit, and we also make them available individually. One other thing is, Jack was talking about, you got to be careful that you have your table sealed. Now, when I first started introducing water into my work many years ago, I actually built kind of a gully that was covered with the plaster cloth, the impregnated plastic cloth that Woodland Cynic sells, right? And it looked really good. It looked really good. And I used a 2-part epoxy resin, 50% part 1, 50% part 2. And I used duct tape, not masking tape, but duct tape to seal off where the water reached the end of the layout and would leave the scene. And the duct tape held really, really good. But apparently there was a pinhole, and apparently
It'll find it.
apparently there's a pinhole, and I didn't know. And I came back the next day all excited because the stuff, that 50-50 mix, takes a long time to dry and cure. And there was no water, but below my table was a very good pool of hardened epoxy, which eventually ended up getting painted into the concrete floor. Now, I had an idea for a magazine because I used to write a lot for Enskillen magazine, sometimes for Model Railroad or Gazette or whatever. And I had an idea, and I never pursued it because I knew this stuff would just run, was to take a metal bucket, carry around handle bucket, and fill it basically with concrete, and paint the concrete black once it was full and hardened, and stick it down below where my water left the layout, and actually use a piece of clear acetate, glue it on to the layout, have a long piece of it running all the way down into the bucket where it would be affixed, and then run the water from the layout down the acetate into the bucket. And it was a way of kind of making fun of what had happened, and I was going to call it a drop in the bucket. Where, of course, if you stepped in the bucket, you'd probably break your toe because it would be fastened to the concrete floor. So, if you want to try something new, or if you do this, send us a picture. But I called it a drop in the bucket. It's basically the water running off your layout, like the Great Falls in South Africa, Victoria Falls, and coming down and hitting the bucket, and that's where it landed. And it's kind of a cute little modeling concept for your visitors. So that's it. Now, Steve Moskin, here again, a fellow who's here tonight, asked some of your. This is really more my question, I think, than Jack's. Some of your kids have plastic windows and doors. Other kids have laser cut windows and doors. Some of your kits, Bar Mills kits, have a combination of both. What determines if you use plastic or laser cut windows? Well, it's a matter of creativity. There are many kit companies that are almost totally reliant upon injection molded plastic windows that are gotten through commercial sources, the same windows you could buy at your local hobby shop or through Walters or other distributors. If you had a piece of wood and you bought a few windows, you'd be basically able to accomplish much of what a kit manufacturer was charging you a premium for. If you were to have to pay for it as a kit. Now, not all kits are that simple, but for the ones that are, sometimes I have to wonder why any of us go out and spend X amount of dollars on something we can make for 1/10 of X. The thing of it is the plastic windows are great. We use them. We use them especially in HO scale. But we always make sure that the number one rule is our freight doors are never anything but laser cut because we want to have something that has a lot of character. And one thing people say, but are your models based on real buildings? And they kind of are. We come up with ideas, we see real buildings, but we look at them and we go, that's a great building, but wouldn't it be great if it had more character? And both Jack and I do this, and we've driven around New England here doing this, taking pictures of windows and freight doors. And we will take a common building and make it uncommon by designing an unusual freight door and giving it that special character. These you cannot buy. Also, a lot of windows in these buildings, here again, we're in New England, and some of the buildings are very large or have architectural significance to them. And we have no interest in trying to reproduce those in plastic, so we make those out of laser board at this point as well. So yes, we have a combination, but it's to make our structures tell the story, to make them unique. And the easy way is just to substitute a bunch of pre-made injection molded windows, and there are plenty of those out there. Now, when it comes to N scale and O scale, honestly, we try to make all of our models, regardless of the scale they're in, almost identical, as close as we can. And O scale and N scale traditionally have to have, almost without exception, laser cut windows and doors to emulate the ones that we would have used in the HO version of the same kit. Jack, what do you have?
What do
I thought
have?
you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just believe that most of the time when we go to a laser cut window, we're going because that window is not available. And if you go to a have a plastic window manufacturer, you're not going to buy 50 of these. They're going to want you to buy thousands of them. So if you're only going to do a kit with that particular window, it's easier for us to cut them.
We try to keep the plastic windows though.
Yeah, we
For
do use plastic,
clarification,
yep.
more in the consumer price kits, the ones in the
Yeah.
hobby shop, because that's the more of the novice modeler, the guy who isn't maybe up to his nose in kit building, just maybe up to his ankles, and it just makes it easier for them. But you'll notice on our more advanced kits, we start to integrate more of a hybrid more and more because we know that the guys that build that level kit are more comfortable with doing that level work.
Yeah, we like to use a lot of the laser cut boards are sometimes storefronts and things like that also, which, again, we're not going to have them make up, 50 of these. They won't do it. They'll do it, but
Well,
you
we make
can't-
our own windows, though. We
Yeah.
all of our windows that in HO scale, the gray ones that you get from us, we have them injected from our own patterns. So if they look like Grant Line, because everything looks like Grant Line.
But they're kind of a generic window, so you
They
can
are
use
generic.
them on many buildings. So
You
if have
can't
a
say just
specialty
because
building,
it's common you don't use it. That would be foolish.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Bruce Kutch. Hey, Bruce, how you doing? I know you're out there tonight. Bruce is a well-known O-scaler. He says, I have difficulty, and this one's for you, Jack. I have difficulty in determining what is a quote-unquote light coat of primer. Whenever I apply a light coat, it looks to me like it's not enough, so I go over it again and again, probably more than is necessary. The second procedure I could use some suggestions on is applying pressure and or clamping peaked roofs while the white glue, which should be probably, while glue dries. I said white glue.
Yeah.
While glue dries. I like to use weights, but on most pitched roofs, they slide off. That makes sense. I've tried propping up the side until half the roof is level, and that works most of the time. Now, you understand he's an O scale, so this is compounded even more than any other scale. I've hung 1, 2, 3 blocks, if you know what those are. Those, if you're into woodworking, as I am here, you'll know what those are. I've hung 1, 2, 3 blocks from the roof peaks with some success, but I'm thinking there should be a better way. Please help me, Jack.
Okay, we go with the primer. Okay, we're trying to prime the coat. We're using if we're using the
primer coat just as a sealer.
we just need to cover it with a light coat. You don't need to really
Put it on. You're going to look at it when it gets too heavy a coat. It's going to start taking the detail away from whatever you're painting. So if you had a wall that had some, wood with cracks and things like that, and the paint's starting to fill those, that's too much paint. Yeah, you don't want to fill those up. You don't want to hide them with the paint. You want just enough to seal it up. And if you use it as a base coat color, then you just want that color to be slightly uniformed. The other thing on the roofs, it's a simple fix, believe it or not. Get yourself a good-sized baggie, fill it full of sand, regular plain old, sandbox sand, and when you drape it over the roof, it's going to grab at the pitch and it's going to lay down on the sides of the roof and it's going to give you even pressure all the way across the roof.
And don't have the baggie weigh more than, say, 50 or 60
Yeah,
pounds.
yeah, you don't want to make it, you don't want it to crush the building, but you want to give it just enough weight to hold that down, and it's going to pull on the peak, but it's also going to push down on the sides.
Now, I do have a couple comments. Calvin Sexton, who we spoke to before, says a brown color I once used with water effects in the layout was Instant Tasters Coffee. Okay, so you use coffee for the coloring and to get some brown water.
We've been
Sounds
using
great.
tea for a long time to stain stuff.
Oh, absolutely. John Clark says errors on structures can be hidden by many things. Try a downspout, a pole against the building. A pole against the building, loose lumber against the building can also, take away the visual of something that maybe isn't right. Bob Gambella.
Bushes work too.
Bushes. Oh, I told you.
Or
Vines.
boats when you put them up against the building where you have all the shingles falling off. We've
That's
spent
it.
hours and hours, and then you hide it all.
Bob Gambella says to go back. This goes back a few years, but how much laser time was spent creating the security fence for 4th Street bail bonds? It's a work of art, which is kind of true. I know you stated in the instructions as an aside that you would never undertake the project again. It's not hard for us to make it. It just is very, very long
Yeah, it
as
takes-
far as manufacturing time. And the thing of it is, we designed that security gate for that particular building. If you're not familiar with it, you should give it a look because it really is cool. I painted it with some silver, I think it was polyscale at the time, aluminum paint. And the fact of it is, the gates were designed to fit those specific windows and door. There was a corner door and a couple of windows. We could come out with them. They'd be pretty expensive considering we couldn't make very many of them in an hour. It just takes a long time. I think they're great. I think maybe we could do them out of brass, but as Lenny knows, and I don't know if Jack does, a recent brass build for things that we do out of brass has gone up
Yeah, metal
100%. It's gone double.
Everything's gone crazy.
It's gone crazy. So, there you go. What do we have here? Glenn Hedrick here again from up in Canada. I have always been curious. Jack, you have something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, Glenn Hedrick says, I've always been curious as to how you got started. You know what? I'm not going to talk about how we got started with bar mills. We'll save that till last. Mark Thomas, first of all, love the videos. I'm a young man of 55. Seriously, you are a young man. But Lenny, do you have something?
Skipped over Jeff.
Did I skip over Jeff? I'm on Mark Thomas. Oh, Jeff DeVito. You know what? It's the same question as Glenn Hedrick, basically.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to hold off on that one. Mark Thomas, first off, love the videos. I am a young kid, just 55 years old, double nickels, just getting into model railroading. Well, welcome aboard. Bought my first bar mills kit and can't find the related videos. Well, you want to say that?
Yeah, we just need to know what kit it is.
Well, not every kit has specific videos. This is a technology that we've been employing really in the last 2 years, and we are doing things called page-to-page on occasion, and we are putting what they call a QR code in some of our instructions these days. It's more work. It doesn't make us more money, but I think it makes for a better kit, and that means something. Of course, we do have a lot of videos on the homepage of Bower Mills, and even more, I think, because I think we've left out a couple from the homepage on our YouTube channel. So if you're on YouTube and you're watching this, do a little shopping around. And if you have any specific ones that we can do, we're always looking to make more. And we appreciate your input. Okay.
If he has something, questions and stuff, you can always email us, and we can probably figure out if we can answer those questions for you. We've built most all the kits, so we have a pretty good idea of how they go together and what some of the techniques you can use, or you can look up on our videos.
Well, we have an interesting question by Bob and Wanda. Bob and Wanda Wright. W-R-I-G-H-T. At the Amherst show on Saturday, the Amherst show being the Springfield show, we attended this man's demos, Jack's demos. He gave us a set of plastic containers with powder. Hopefully he didn't give you the wrong powder. Rust and black.
Was it white?
Hopefully it wasn't snow, because anyhow, the powder was rust and black for weathering buildings. Can you tell us what that powder is, Jack? Why don't you?
Did it melt? Because I was cleaning out my driveway and I put it in these little cups and sent them to you. It's weathering powders. It's basically a chalk material with an emulsion in it that makes it stick. That's basically what it is. It's weathering powders. A bunch of people out there sell them. We used to sell them. Believe it or not, they're made. The weathering powders that you buy from all these different people are made by exactly the same people. They just buy the bulk, put it in their package, and say it's theirs.
Also, Jack, I have to tell you, I know this for a fact. I used to buy 50-pound bags of this stuff. If you can get samples of dye used in concrete, the stuff they throw into concrete to give the color.
Dry pigment, it's called.
It's amazing stuff. It works really well. We had weathering powders available at some point, and I had purchased 4 50-pound bags of weathering powders. Essentially, it was concrete dye. And our dog, Sammy, our golden, was very young at the time, and I had one of the bags on our front lawn, and he decided to rip it open. And he ripped open the bag that was rust-colored. And for that whole entire summer season, that part of our lawn
It was weathered.
looked like it was rusty. We picked up the bag, but whatever hit the lawn was not about to come up. It works really well, even in the weather, I can tell you.
If you're looking for that powder, it's I think it's called Rainbow Colors. and you can buy it in small boxes. They use it for grout coloring too, just to color grout. So if you can look around and find it,
You get small packages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
you don't have to,
small-
and
it's
you
a
can
little
get a
box.
million colors. So,
yeah.
Jim Muller says, "How do I manage?" Jim, hope you're listening, Jim Muller. Mueller, is it Mueller? How do I manage to complete the 23 bar mills kits I have before they put me in an institution with Jack Nicholson?
Well, if you want to go to the institution, start all those models at once. That will get you
And,
right.
don't separate the parts.
And
Put
the-
them all together in one big pile.
Yeah, and don't forget not to read the instructions. That'll do it for the first part, and then you're done. I would just, it depends upon your level. If you're really a up-to-date modeler and you've been doing a bunch of them, you can probably pick any one that you want, start, and you got to just start and do them. If you pick some time, put some time away each day or each week or something like that, and do a little bit on each, and just keep it rolling. I mean, it's the way to do it. It's hard to get motivated sometimes.
And
but
if
the
you're
only way
watching this, keep in mind that you should be working on these models, not staring at the internet, so you know.
yeah, the internet won't build them for you.
No, that's true.
Although you can watch our podcast.
The exception, of course.
Yeah, just pick one, maybe a smaller one to start, and you got to kind of build your own interest in them. And by doing one or two and it comes out, you like the way it comes out, then it's going to drag you on to the next one, because you want to do more and more and more. It's kind of fun that way.
Question by Mark Hagan. When designing / engineering a kit, engineering, by the way, is done by Jim Mooney, how do you determine what materials to use for which parts? For instance, cardboard versus plywood. Is it a matter of aesthetics, function, or economics? How much value engineering do you employ when designing a kit? Number one, if you mean value engineering as far as maximizing our components to minimize the cost of a kit, that's a great concept, but it's not what we rely upon. If something needs something, we make it, and then we figure out the money on it. And
If
we
we-
don't want to cut corners just to save a few cents on in engineering a kit.
If you find a material that's inexpensive and it works well for what we're doing, we will use that. If it's not, then we're going to have to find something else that's going to do a better job for it.
And as far as what do we use? Well, there was a time we used plywood a lot. Generally, the 1/64 of an inch thick. The price of plywood tripled. And when we buy a sheet of plywood, and I tell you it's $19, you might say, well, plywood's, it's expensive, but we're talking about $19 for a 1 foot by 2 foot sheet. So if you multiply that by 16, which is a standard piece you'd buy in Home Depot, because it's aircraft plywood, you can imagine the cost on that. The problem with plywood was we used it a lot for windows, and the fact of it is windows, when you cut it out of plywood, because you are dealing with a grain, all the grain goes in one direction. Whether it's supposed to be horizontal or not, it goes vertical for the most part. So we came up with the idea of something called laser board, which was something I came across, and we offered it to Northeastern to sell. We even actually named it laser board right here. It was our product, and we Mike Sarno, who owns Northeastern, a friend of mine, asked if he could distribute it to other manufacturers, and I said yes. And now everybody knows laser board. It's one of those little things that just kind of happened while we were talking one summer over here at the station. So laser board, we find, is about the best we could hope for when it comes to not having specific grain that you have to hide and disguise, and for durability. Although laser board, a lot of times, especially in windows, we will make them double thick by using adhesive on the backs of them. Cardboard versus plywood versus MDF, by the way, is our kind of latest craze. It's useful for a lot of things. It needs very little bracing, and it comes in larger sheets, so we're not worried about wood grain.
It holds the brick really nice.
And when we etch the brick in it, it's perfect. Lenny, do you have something?
Dan on Facebook asks, today, Art, you mentioned Smoky Hill Fire Station would be too expensive to produce an O-scale.
True.
What makes a kit too expensive, and what kit did you learn this on, and what other kits are you coming out with an O-scale?
Well, Lenny, you know what? I know you're off camera. You want to join us on camera for a second?
Sure.
We're going to have Lenny come in because he's our production manager.
I have a perfect example.
I'm going to let you sit right here.
Well,
Sit
Can you
down in
hear
the
us?
yeah, you can hear me. I talk loud.
All right.
So, this is a great question. I would say to the second latter part of your question, what kit did we learn this on? O-scale Idaho. As Art was just talking about, plywood is expensive. It has gotten very, very expensive. Back when I was still in middle school when I started here, it was a lot cheaper. In something like the O-Scale Idaho, everything is plywood. Windows, doors, even the roof on that is plywood. We were going over things one day, and I'm like, I wonder how much that actually costs us to produce. That was probably 3 years ago, and at that point, that cost us just in the plywood material, not everything else that goes in the kit, almost $100.
And we're talking about the O scale.
And that's the O-Scale Idaho. That was kind of like a rude awakening. It's a beautiful kit, but at a certain point, it becomes, if your materials cost this much, you have to factor in and think about, well, value for number one, and secondly, if I price this at this point, is anybody going to want to buy it? Obviously we love to pack our kits full of all kinds of stuff, but it comes to a certain point where if it's not a good value at a good price, along with retaining the fun aspect of our products, we just can't do it. It just doesn't make sense for, you the modeler or us the manufacturer.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to read this, and you could share this with Jack, and I can kind of be the voice. I don't know if you can hear. Well, I have the microphone. You can hear
Yes.
me. How long does it take you guys, meaning all of us here, the three of us, to get ready for a live stream show?
Tonight, about 15 minutes. Jack, 3 hours by the time you drive over here and back?
Oh, well, I got an hour drive, but
Right.
that's not part of it. If you have to sometimes count the time that it's to prepare it, not just the time to put it on. And sometimes it's like anything else, What's that?
No, you got to prepare the
the
videos,
videos.
which are
You got videos. You've got to figure out what you're going to do. If you're going to have guests, you have to get guests. You have to talk to guests. Make sure they can come on. Make sure that they're able to see and talk to them. So that's the time that takes the time to do this. To set it up and for us to do it, it doesn't take very long at all. It's the prep. It's always
Organizing
whatever you do.
customer
It's always the
photos.
prep work. It's
I
always
generally
prep
put
work.
in close to 2 days between shooting the videos, mixing them, uploading them to YouTube, and of course,
Realistically, the process starts on Friday before.
well, actually, it starts when we shoot the videos because Jack and I will normally shoot 2 videos.
Yeah, we try to
and
do
we
2.
we separate it this way. We have 2 separate
Yeah.
months of First Mondays.
Well, it
rather
gives
than
us
have to do
it gives us one in the bank that you can use if you have to when we run into a problem.
That's right. Now I'm going to give you another question, Lenny. Now let's see what we have here. I think this
It's a
one
test.
here. This one has actually here. This is the question. Ron DeMack. Ron, if you're on, we asked you to stump the band, and I swear to God, you stumped us on this because I don't have an answer. What limited edition building did we reintroduce that had and made that had and made? This is what he says. Only 88 copies of. Any building that we've never done.
I thought all day on this.
Is
and
this? I'm not here, but
Yeah, you can say it.
Is that the elevator old building?
the
great-
Graves
the gra-
elevator?
Graves,
Graves?
the old Graves. Did we make a whole?
The big
we had a
tall
whole
one.
bunch of
Yes,
those
that-
buildings made up.
That could have been it. And actually, the building was part of it, but it also came in the wooden box as well. And there was that.
Was it the Graves?
The
The
Graves
elevator?
building.
Graves
The
elevator?
old man Graves building.
Old Man Hearts.
Oh no, old man, the Graves building. Not the big building, the
Right.
little building that was behind it. We had a bunch of those left
Oh,
over.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it became kind of
The Cundy Cannery.
was a kit bash.
Yeah, it ended up into the Cunty Cannery.
And let's see, one other question before I throw you out, and this is basically for Jack. Okay. What is the best method to, this is about Artie Crass, by the way. Artie, I didn't mean to short you on that. What is the best method to remove the clapboard around window openings so the windows lie flat in the openings and not on top of the clapboard? Anyhow, that's, to me, I don't care about that, but what's your
Depends.
thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
it depends. If you're doing it in O scale, it could make a difference. HO, it's hard to even see it. N scale, forget it. It's gone. You're not even going to know it. But the easiest way to basically I've found is you put the window over the opening, run the knife around the outside, and just pick off with the tip of the blade. Again, there's no other way. There isn't a tool out there made that's going to do this.
Actually, there is.
well.
It's called a laser, and we'd actually have to remove that
Yeah.
material, and all of that etching around each of the windows would eat up more laser time. And we have to be careful because the more we do it, our help gets paid. The materials don't cost more, but certainly the laser time costs, and we don't feel it's worth the effort considering the minimalistic effect it may or may not even have.
Now, if you're going to do, on one of my things, I did a stucco building, and I needed some way, again, to have recess the windows. And basically, what I did is I put blue tape in the hole for the window, cut the opening for the window, put the window in, cut around the outside of the window, peeled back the tape, and left the tape around the opening, which was the size of the overlap of the window. Then I stuccoed my wall, pulled the tape up, and dropped the window in. But that's stucco. You're going to have to, unfortunately, run the knife around the window and then just kind of shave off the little pieces that stick up.
It's more academic than anything, to be honest with you, and you'll never see it.
If you're doing contest models, I'd say they might say something about it, but very, very few times do they ever say it.
Now, I'm going to interject a couple things that I see from comments. Bruce Kutch, who's an O-Scaler, says, the O-Scale Idaho is a great kit. Bruce, I have to tell you, I'm glad you got one because we no longer make it. We simply cannot afford to make that kit anymore. Dave Nitchell from Plymouth, Wisconsin. And John Clark remembers the wooden boxes that we had. Originally, when we came out with limited run kits, we had custom-made wooden boxes. I had the idea because you'd go into a wine shop and wine would come in this lovely wooden box. We located a company in Turner, Maine called the Nezin Scott Guild. It was a company that was based on hiring handicapped people. And we gave them a call, and we negotiated a deal on hundreds and hundreds of wooden boxes. Unfortunately, government funding went away, and so did the wooden boxes. Yes, they cost a couple dollars more, not really too much more considering that they were subsidized through a government program. But the fact of it is we knew we were helping handicapped people that way, and we kind of felt good about that. So that's what happened to the wooden boxes. Jim Armour says, that is the best idea when building. Keep it under a smoke. Okay, I'm not quite sure because my glasses aren't working. Let's see, Glenn Peterson, don't look at all 23 models at once.
Right.
Pick up one and put the others away. That's a good suggestion, Glenn.
Just pick one.
And Jim Armour agrees it's a great idea.
Don't pick the hardest one, though. Pick an easier one so you get yourself going.
Anyhow, let's get back to this. Artie Kress, he's very questioning young man, I'm sure. Have you ever used surgical tape, like 3M NextCare, for roofing material? I know we use a lot of things for roofing material. I'm not familiar with, Jack. Did you ever use this?
I have not used it.
And it depends what kind of roofing material. Anyhow, typically I would think with tape you'd be looking at some kind of a.
It's probably like the old masking tape that used to crinkle up and all this thing. I'll bet you. So
when I get serious about doing any kind of tar paper roofing, my favorite thing always has been and always will be probably single ply toilet paper. I just love the way it wrinkles up, and I don't know, it just works. You've used it, I'm sure.
no, I've seen the tape. There's a couple types of tape too that you can use. There's a tape that draftsmen used to use to hold down drawings when they were doing it, and I bet it's a 3M product also.
Jim Armour, who's obviously with us tonight, ask the question. I have several models over the years, and this is an interesting question. I think we're going to have different takes on this. I have several models that over the years the window glazing has either fallen out or has yellowed over the years. These models have solid floors, so he has no way of really getting into them. Many of the windows are either metal or plastic. That only makes sense. What would you suggest, Jack? You want to do this one?
There's basically really only one way you can fix that window, and that is to see if you can get the window out. Something that's flat and thin, to work your way around it and see if they've just used a little bit of glue around the edge of it, you can pop the window out, and once you get the window out, you can reglaze it and put it back in. And I suggest Eileen's Tacky Glue, because it'll do dissimilar materials. It'll glue the metal windows, plastic windows, wooden windows in, but it'll allow you to pop the window out again if you ever have to. I put all my windows in with it, and I've done some buildings where I've just completely repainted it. I didn't like the color. Took all the windows out, repainted the building, put the windows back in. You got to be
Well-
careful.
Yeah, but Jack, now if you're using regular wood glue, yellow glue, white glue, it's one thing because white glue is a little brittle, and if anything, it makes it easier to remove things,
right.
which is not always. When you build something, the whole idea isn't to have it removed; it's to keep it together. If you're using something like CA, on the other hand, that's very difficult. It's great for putting, say, metal windows in a wooden wall because it loves all kinds of materials, but it's going to give you a lot more of a problem. The other thing is, I don't know if you're familiar, Jack, but if you want to go out and track it down, Lexan, Lexan, the same stuff. It's a very almost indestructible plastic. Is available clear in very, very thin sheets, and it's used in the sign business sometimes. And it makes great windows. And because this Lexan is UV resistant, I've never really thought about yellow windows in kits. I honestly have to wonder how much UV is hitting your models. Most of us don't see any UV in our basements, and I have to wonder how old the models are that this is starting to happen.
Well, it depends on what you use. Some of those acetates, these older acetates, will go yellow, if that's what they were using.
Well, if you look at film,
Yeah, it'll go. It'll
because we
yellow.
used to use film from
Yeah.
the camera, right?
And
And
it's
you used to be
it's
able to use
acetate,
that. Absolutely.
Artie Krause, yeah, you could use canopy glue, and you can do by drawing it across the window, so you can create the window panes. And you have to probably clean it up from the outside, but that would be a solution that you probably could do.
I have Bill Freeland says, hi, Bill. How you doing? I hope you're here tonight. I haven't noticed, to be honest with you. Is it better to stain? Now, this is for you, Jack, more than me, because I don't get involved with staining or that washes as much as you do. Is it better to stain first and then paint? Can a stain be applied after paint has been used? Jack.
Let's see.
Stain and then paint, or can you flip that around and go the other way with
All
it?
right. It depends upon what I'm doing. Any kind of wood that I'm going to glue together eventually, and I want it to look like wood, I'm going to stain it before I put anything together. Because once you put the glue on the wood,
Excuse me.
where the glue is, it won't stain. So you're going to have these splotches. So you want to stain the wood first. I do my technique on the walls where I do white or a color, which I call a very coarse dry brushing, which leaves splotches of raw wood, and then I'll use ink and alcohol over the top of that, which is basically an alcohol stain. It also dissolves the acrylic paint just a little bit and then stains the wood behind it. So you can do both. It's hard to do it if you put a light coat of paint over it and then try to stain it. You're going to have real trouble because it's going to seal the wood. When I normally do this dry brushing, it's usually done before the paint is dry. I don't let the paint dry. I do it before it dries up.
We have a comment by Jim Armour, who's always pretty much here with us on these broadcasts. He mentions that plastic windows have a disadvantage of not being positionable. We designed windows that eventually Tishy did on his own, but we did the original design, and ours are not made by Tishy that we do. And they were the windows that were in variable open and closed positions. Of course, that only applies to the specific window that we do, because you can't have every window two versions of it, one open and one closed, or variably open and closed. But so some plastics do accommodate for that, but not many.
And we do have a bunch of tilt-out windows that are plastic. So you have maybe a top pane that tips out, or a middle pane that tips out. So we have a bunch of those.
And I assume that, Lenny, you had seen a while ago that we had a problem with the audio. Did you straighten that out?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
I haven't seen that tonight. Okay.
Do you know this one, Hector Turner?
Yeah, he's a regular good guy. He's
Why
a
was the
Canadian
city
guy.
water tower discontinued? Do you know what a city water tower?
Yes, we had a large water tower. We did it in black and we did it in silver. And we put it out specifically to match the Hart Trading Company
Okay.
kit. And we had to make a lot of them because it was injection molded for us out of our designs that Jim Mooney actually drew up. And once that kit was come and gone, we had to purchase enough to make it worthwhile. So we sold them while we had them. We even had Microscale print up special decals for those,
Yeah.
which are really good.
Yeah.
Those decals, we still have stacks of those laying around. Anyhow, so that's why it was discontinued, because we had to run, I think, minimum 600 at a time, and it takes a long time to sell 600 water towers. Another thing, the last thing that I kind of put off, and I will keep looking back and forth
Here's one.
here. What do you have? What do you have? What,
He was talking about releasing the plans for discontinued kits for the scratch build people. Interesting question.
Not likely, because the kits these days, everybody's buying lasers, and what we don't want is our stuff to be easily duplicated. If you're going to duplicate it, earn it. It's just we do help people. Now, if something comes out in HO scale, and we have an O scaler that would really like to build it, we understand that, and we will provide them not only with the HO scale drawings, what we call elevations, but oftentimes I'll take them and I'll blow them up to O scale proportions, and I will turn them into a PDF and supply them with something, because it was never available through us, and we're flattered that they want to do a model that we've done, but maybe isn't available in the scale they're looking for, and that we have done. But typically, just to publish our plans in today's world, not everybody is all that creative. And what we don't need is a Bar Mills clone running around. We don't copy anyone, but I'm not saying that no one would copy anyone else, regardless of whether it's us or Craftsman, Carolina Craftsman, whoever it is. So no, we're kind of that's a little proprietary. And a lot of those kits, by the way, the older ones, find their way into some aspects, find their way into newer kits at some time. So here again, it's good to keep them somewhat fresh.
Then we will sometimes release parts of those bigger kits. Every once in a while, we'll use a building or something like that. Maybe incorporate it with another building or something like that. But every once in a while, they'll show up after a while. We like to keep them exclusive.
What do you have, Lenny?
Do you see the question from Jeff about the paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that?
He was talking about, he wanted to know what was the thin paper you used on the printer to make your signs. Depends upon what sign you're making. And if you're looking for the tissue paper signs, if you go onto our website, there's a tutorial printout, 26 pages, 101. You can pick that up and it will tell you exactly how to do it, so I'm not going to explain it all, how to do the tissue paper signs. But if you're doing the tissue paper signs, it's the tissue paper they use to stuff in gifts and things like that. You can buy it at a store for $2, and it's probably more than you'll ever use. If I'm making a regular paper sign, I'll probably just use regular old printer paper, and I can do whatever I want with it. I can make it weathered or whatever. If you're using an inkjet printer, you have to seal the ink. That's a must, especially if you're going to use any kind of liquid weathering on it. It will run the ink. So seal it up, a clear acrylic spray. You can buy it a couple of places around. Spray both sides of it lightly. And then once you seal it up, you can probably do anything you want. Powders, ink and alcohol, all that stuff will work. So.
Well, and we went out of our way in some of our kits. American Seltzer is a good example of actually purchasing a case, because we had to buy the case, and we still have plenty of it left. I don't think we'll ever use it all, of what they call onion skin paper. Do you remember that stuff, Jack? Now, you have to have a really good printer to print onion skin, and it has to be done one sheet at a time, and it has a tendency to fold over and gets a really good crease in it. But it's incredible paper. The only thing is you got to be prepared to lay out about $500 for one box of
I think
paper.
you can get onion skin if you go to like an art supply store. I'll bet you they have a pad of it.
Where were you when I spent the $500?
What?
What? I spent $500. Now you're telling me this?
Yeah. That you didn't ask me.
No, that's
If
what
you
I
had
got.
asked me, I probably would have saved you a lot of
This
money.
is what happens when you don't ask Jack Ellis, folks, just to let you know. I have a closing, well, I don't know if it's going to be the closing one, because it seems to me that we've addressed so many things here. What's that?
I do peruse these stores looking for stuff that we can use all the time, and you'll never know what you came up with.
Perusing doesn't sound like it should be legal.
It isn't, but I don't fill my pockets, so it's not that kind of perusing. I just kind of look around, see what they have. And I'm surprised what I've bought, and most of the time I end up using it. Sometimes it works good, and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, just hold off on your perusing for a second while I'm sitting next to you. And we have one question here that both Glenn Hedrick up in Canada and Jeff DeVito, who we just spoke to, asked, and it's the final question of the night. If you do have any comments one way or the other, we will try to address those as well. Both of them basically pose the same question. I have always been curious as to how you got started with model trains and how you came to have Bar Mills, and how old is the company and how did it get started? Now, I'm the guy to answer this question, but I'm going to deflect some of this to Jack because we all got started in model trains. Jack, how did you get started?
Oh, I probably got started like everybody else. I think it was HO though. I probably got an HO set for Christmas, but before that, I was probably doing structures. I've always been interested in structures, so I remember starting off using Walter's printed paper to build my buildings with cardboard boxes and things like that. It's funny because now when I'm building kits, a lot of printed paper is used, so I'm kind of full circle around using printed paper again. But it's the effect that I'm looking for, so printed paper works pretty good in some places. But from there, you end up going on to a small layout, and then life interferes with it for a while, and then you go back to it, and then I ended up in an apartment. I had no place to do it, so I ended up doing competition models for about 4 or 5, 6 years maybe, and all I did was compete in the national, regional, and national, regional, and divisional level, which was a lot of fun. If you get a chance to do it, everybody talks about these, rivet counters and things like that. Most of the judges, and I've judged that too, are not looking to knock down your kit or your model. What they're trying to do is give you some suggestions how to make it better. And if you're going on with it to go into another competition, how to get more points and things like that. So it can be very valuable, and it's kind of a fun thing to do sometimes. So that's what I went from there, and then I went to layouts, and then I ran into this guy at the layout over in North Conway, where I was president for a while, and then we did a couple of things. And
North Conway being New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, yeah. A couple of things, and we ended up here doing this.
And my thing was basically, I remember as a child laying under the tree, by the Christmas tree, with all the tinsel. I mean, a lot of tinsel in those days, with O-scale trains, actually O-27, but who knew? And a big present for me would have been a bag of toy soldiers, the green ones, and I would shove those soldiers in every orifice, so to speak, of that train possible, hanging off the gondolas and sticking them in the caboose and so on. And that became a larger Lionel set, and of course those were the days of model motoring, and that integrated itself. And then it kind of went away. That lasted me all through high school. I ended up with HO scale in high school on a 5 foot by 10 foot layout. Then I got married and had my kids and started a couple of businesses. And then later on, I started. I joined a model railroad club on Long Island called the Long Island Model Railroad Engineers, and they say never volunteer. And I have to tell you, I did volunteer to help build their N-scale N-track thing. They needed a corner. I built it in a few days, and I started with N-scale. And one thing led to another, including writing articles for N-scale magazine. And I had gone up at one point. I was working in Connecticut, and I had met the great Earl Smallshaw there. And Earl was very hospitable. He is a legend in the hobby, for those of you who know who he was. And he said to me, Artie, I've never spent any money on my layout. He had the great Middletown and Mystic Mines Railroad in HO scale. And I said, well, how did you not spend any money doing this? It's amazing. He says, well, I started modeling and doing, not modeling, but doing articles in 1950 at the time. And he says, if I needed an engine, I'd do an article, I'd get an engine. If I needed some track, I'd do an article, I'd get some track. So I started writing articles and ended up doing N-Scale magazine, eventually other magazines. And I had this idea about billboards because Nancy and I owned a sign shop concurrently at that time. And I thought a billboard would be great, something I could use. So I went to not one but 2 different companies and asked about doing billboards, and they both turned me down, saying it would never work, and they just weren't interested. So time went on. I ended up working for Northeastern Scale Models for a little while as a product development. I think we lost our screen here, Lenny.
Hold on.
Okay.
Talking.
If the sound's on, we have a battery in the camera here. And we have an extra one. Lenny's going to put that in. Anyhow, I worked for Northeastern for a while. I introduced the billboard with them. And they didn't want to do it. They didn't think it was worth doing. And I decided, well, you know what? we have a sign shop. Let's get a laser and let's start making billboards. And that's how Bar Mills started. Basically, Bar Mills is, if I have a role model, it's not who you might think. It's not Bob Van Gelder, George Celios, or those
I know
guys.
who it is.
Because I never was really in that era of building that quality kit. My era when I was growing up was Campbell's. And I always thought Campbell's made great kits. They were easily accessible and affordable and creative. So I know right now we're dealing with a possible camera issue. Has that been resolved now?
We're back.
Okay.
Great set of plans, though.
Everything was handwritten in those days.
Campbell's.
But Campbell's, if you know, they always set up their dioramas as a diorama, which is what we do to this day.
Yep.
So Bar Mills is basically modeled after Campbell's as far as the spirit of it. Make an affordable kit that's creative and easy to get a hold of and be there for people like Leo Campbell was. So basically that's how we started, and we started actually in the year 2000. And I think I've got to get lower in this frame here, Len. You got me out of the frame. And what happened was in 2000 we put together eight Bar Mills billboards in 2 scales, so it was 16 kits. And our daughter Kate and myself headed out to California to San Jose, where there was an NMRA convention. We got one table set up, and the rest is history. So that's how that worked. So this is 2024 marks the completion of our 25th year, and I've always said very simply, without you, there's no us. And to this day, that's what we do, and that's why we try to be here to help you. So that's the story. There's actually a little bit more to it, but that's enough for you to know. Anyhow. If we have any other questions here, I don't see any more here offhand. Let me just go through here.
Oh, you love the step corners posts in Campbell's kits. Interesting way to do it.
We tried using them, and we didn't find them to be accurate enough. You understand, Campbell's kits were not laser cut. Ours are, and I think that may have been part of the difference. Charles Chapuis, sounds like Maurice Chevalier. Any update on the release of the Cold Bunker initially from Queen City? That's something on the back burner, but we'd like to re-release that one. John Clark says there's a link for some signs. The signs I'm talking about are the ones for the Rickety Cove kit. It's on the Rickety Cove page on the website, and it's in the lower right-hand corner. You'll see a little place you can click and get those signs. Okay. Jack, do you have anything else?
I don't know. Let me take a quick look.
Yeah, those step corners, Jeff, are actually available through Northeastern. That's who makes them.
They're nice. If you're doing scratch build work, it's kind of nice.
They doubled as interior bracing because they weren't big on interior bracing back in those days. They were using a different kind of wood. It may have even been a different thickness. I don't remember.
I actually create, when I put my corner boards on and my bracing, I actually make that little step the same way it's done, but I just use 2 pieces of wood. One is the corner board and the other one is the bracing. That gives me that piece to slide it right into and get it in there really nice and tight.
And Bill Freeland, yes, I think we've all at one point fooled around with wood ashes for weathering. It's probably far less controllable than we'd like. And frankly, it's so inexpensive to do it, with a more refined touch using commercial products. I personally wouldn't do it.
Tom Staten uses ashes very interestingly way. He mixes it with water and white glue, and he makes tar roads with them. And when they dry out, they crack, and they look like asphalt that cracks. It's very interesting to do.
Yeah, but he also models an O scale, and he weathers a lot, and he goes through a bucket of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
he's the same guy who goes down and digs sand out of the local sand pit, to put it around his railroad. Some of us are more into that than others. On my railroad, personally, tends to be smaller. Jack's, I know, isn't that big. And as a matter of fact, my next project in a couple of years is to build an HO scale layout. I'm about ready. I have an N scale layout, and we certainly have the SN2 at the station.
you got to build a shelf railroad.
Basically, everything's the shelf for me.
Good move.
And as far as it goes, I know we missed saying hello to many of you tonight, including Frank Bernard and Rusty O'Shaughnessy and the rest of you. We've had a great time. I'm glad you were able to join us. And as it is, it's 8:41, so we've gone for an hour and 10, hopefully an interesting hour and 10 minutes. Will we be back first Monday in April? That's not possible. And honestly, I'll be in Europe. I'm taking some time with Nancy and heading over to a lot of countries in Europe, okay? And we will not be back until after April 4th. Will we do it in April? Probably not, but probably in May. And hopefully by then we'll have more to talk about with the ice house, which has not been made available yet because it doesn't fit together.
It's all
as well as
done.
it's done, but the engineering is a little wonky, and we had to reimagine it, you might say. And of course, then we have other plans as well. So as far as it goes, I see. Let's see, we had a couple volume issues, but that seems like a while ago. As far as it goes, Hinkles is never going to be an HO, no, because we have trouble with the graphics, especially the Coca-Cola sign. And that is about it for right now. Jack, do you have any closing comments until we see these guys probably in May?
No, if you're looking for any of the, again, if you're starting to do the kits and stuff and you're looking for any of the techniques, go on that Craftsman Kit 101 that's on the website. There's usually a section on almost all of the stuff, paintings and weatherings and all that stuff. So kind of take a quick look. It gives you an idea of how to do it. And then play around with it. See if you can do it a little differently or make it a little different, play with it and make up some of your own techniques. And
Don't forget, we'll be not in your neighborhood necessarily, but in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania coming up, as well as Dallas, Texas, which is first time in a long time that we've taken that kind of expense to go around and share the hobby. But that's really, Bar Mills is what it is, but it's really about Jack and Jim and myself as far as being the hobbyist end of the situation. Of course, Lenny is chin deep in everything we do here, but it's a chance for us to meet you guys and share some of the experiences that we've been lucky enough to have doing this great hobby.
so these guys that had their questions and you were going to give them the...
Anybody here, just so you know, I have all the names here. This is the
Tell them
list
how
of
they do it.
questions. Well, we have most of you, we have your email addresses, okay? And what we're going to do is email you a $10 gift certificate from Bar Mills, and of course it'll be numbered, and you'll be able to enter it on the internet website for barmillsmodels.com. And we appreciate your input and keep the questions coming. And we have a few months between us right now and the next live session, so hopefully we'll start soliciting for more customer photos. We knew we would not have time for that tonight. So from Lenny, say good night.
Good night.
Good night, Lenny.
There he is. And from Mr. Ellis here, and my wife Nancy, we will be seeing you hopefully in all the right places. And
remember, pick one of those kits, the easy ones, and just start going. And
nothing wrong with an easy kit.
You'll be surprised how it snowballs into the next one, into the next one, into the next one. It's fun.
Thank you all. Take care, guys.